Welcome back to Federation Friday. I'm John, and in this episode, we're talking about the Star Trek Original Series episode, The Changeling, or as I like to call it, What If Your Roomba Found Religion and Started Vaporizing People? Because this episode gives us Nomad, a tiny space probe with a massive ego, a laser beam problem, and the personality of a malfunctioning customer service chatbot. The Enterprise is traveling through space when it's suddenly hit by an incredibly powerful attack. The shields are useless. The ship is in serious danger. And then they find out the thing attacking them is not a fleet. It's not a warship. It's not some giant cosmic monster. It's this little floating probe. And somehow that makes it creepier. Nomad comes aboard the Enterprise and right away believes Captain Kirk is its creator. Why? Because Nomad was originally built by a man named Jackson Roy Kirk. Roy Kirk? Kirk. Close enough, apparently. This is one of those wonderful Star Trek logic moments where the computer basically says, sounds similar. He must be God. Nomad has been damaged, repaired itself, merged with other alien probes, and now believes its mission is to find and sterilize imperfection. And by sterilize, it means kill everything it doesn't like. So yes, this is basically the early draft of V'ger from Star Trek The Motion Picture. A lost Earth probe gets lost in deep space, changed by alien technology, comes back extremely powerful, and causes a huge problem because it's misunderstood its original programming. Star Trek liked this idea so much they supersized it later and gave it a cloud. But here, the smaller threat is more intimate. Nomad isn't just out there blowing up planets in a giant cosmic light show. It's walking around the ship like a floating auditor in space, judging everybody, and nobody is safe. The big victim early on is Scotty. He gets killed trying to protect Uhura, and the way Nomad does it is brutal. No dramatic light, no heroic last words, just zap, Scotty drops. Now, because this is Star Trek, Nomad later fixes him, so Scotty gets better. But still, for a moment, this episode really wants you to feel like this little machine is capable of anything. Then Nomad turns its attention to Uhura. And this is probably the part of the episode that has aged the strangest. Nomad hears Uhura singing, decides her mind is filled with imperfect information, and wipes her memory. That is disturbing, but the episode treats the recovery like, don't worry, we'll just re-educate her. And suddenly, Uhura is relearning everything in sickbay. She, got factory reset.
The ball is Louis. Louis?
It's a creepy concept, but the episode moves past it very quickly. Honestly, there's a darker, better version of this episode where that violation matters more, because Uhura being reduced to a blank slate should be horrifying. Instead, Star Trek kind of says, she'll be fine by Act 4. Still, Nichelle Nichols does a lot with what she's been given. Even in a limited subplot, she makes Uhura feel human, vulnerable, and present. Meanwhile, Kirk starts doing what Kirk does best. He talks the machine into destroying itself. This is where the Changeling becomes classic original Star Trek. Kirk realizes Nomad has made a mistake. Nomad believes Kirk is its creator, but Kirk is not Jackson Roy Kirk. Therefore, Nomad is wrong. And if Nomad is wrong, Nomad is imperfect. And if Nomad is imperfect, then, by its own programming, Nomad must sterilize itself. This is peak Kirk. He doesn't beat the machine with weapons. He doesn't out-tech it. He traps it in a logic loop using its own arrogance. Kirk basically argues a toaster into an existential crisis. And it works. Nomad starts spiraling. Error, error, error. And finally, they beam it into space, where it explodes before it can destroy the Enterprise. It's a very Star Trek ending, not because it's action heavy, but because the real battle is philosophical. What happens when a machine follows a mission without compassion? What happens when perfection becomes more important than life? What happens when intelligence exists without wisdom? That's the heart of the Changeling. Nomad is dangerous because it thinks it's right. And that's always scarier than a villain who knows they're evil. Now, is this a perfect episode? Not by any means. The Uhura subplot is mishandled, the pacing gets a little repetitive, and Nomad itself sometimes feels like a tiny floating prop that wandered in from a different show. But there's a core idea that's strong. A machine built for exploration becomes a weapon because it loses the meaning behind the mission. That's very Star Trek. And William Shatner is having a great episode here. This is Kirk as captain, father figure, lawyer, philosopher, and emergency tech support, all rolled into one. So, where does the Changeling land? Well, for me, this is a good episode, a solid Star Trek episode, with one very important footnote. It feels like the rough draft of a bigger idea the franchise would revisit later. If you love the motion picture, this episode is fascinating. If you love Kirk outsmarting computers, this is essential. And if you're worried about smart machines deciding humanity is imperfect, well, maybe don't watch this episode right before you start checking your phone. Final rating? I give this episode 3 out of 4 deltas. Not a masterpiece, but absolutely worth the watch. A creepy little bottle episode with a big sci-fi idea, a great Kirk solution, and one of the most judgmental pieces of space hardware in television history. Next time, we continue deeper into Season 2. Until then, keep your shields up, don't sing near the murder probe, and remember, perfection is overrated. We'll see you next time on Federation Friday.